All right, let's talk about something that trips up so many junior developers. It's this trap of chasing the perfect resume. You know, the one that's just jam-packed with flashy buzzwords. But what if I told you that whole approach might actually be holding you back? Today, we are going to break down the huge gap between the skills you think you need to list and the skills that actually build a long, successful career in tech.
So take a second and really look at this. Does it feel familiar? Come on, be honest. A lot of us have been there, trying to cram every possible technology we've ever heard of onto one page. But here's the secret. This exact pattern can be a giant red flag for experienced hiring managers. Let's dig into why.
And here it is, the mythical beast, the perfect junior resume. On the surface, it sounds incredible, right? Wow, proficient in a dozen languages, an expert in literally every hot new thing from Kubernetes to machine learning. But the problem is, anyone who's been in the industry for a while sees this and thinks one thing: breadth over depth. It's just a list. It's not a story.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? Senior engineers know that getting truly good at something takes time, a lot of time. A list this long usually means you've probably just skimmed the surface. Maybe you did a quick tutorial, but you haven't really wrestled with these tools to solve a tough, messy, real-world problem. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of why this whole strategy just completely backfires. We're going to look at the massive difference between just listing a technology versus telling a compelling story about how you actually used it to make something better.
Oh man, this is a classic. You see this on resumes all the time. And yeah, it's probably true, but it tells a hiring manager, well, basically nothing. Used it for what? To solve what kind of problem? Was it for a personal project or a production app? It just leaves all the important questions completely unanswered.
Now, look at this. The difference is night and day, right? The statement on the right doesn't just name-drop a tool. It describes a specific valuable outcome. Containerized and deployed a production API? That tells me you didn't just run a Hello World tutorial. It shows you solved a real deployment problem from start to finish. That's what makes a senior engineer stop scrolling.
And here's another one: knows design patterns. Okay, which ones? Do you know when to use them? And way more importantly, have you ever actually used one to make a piece of software better, cleaner, or more maintainable? Again, it's just a claim with zero proof behind it.
And boom, here's the power of being specific. Instead of that vague claim, you're telling a little story. You had a problem, those messy, tangled pricing algorithms. You identified a specific tool for the job, the strategy pattern, and you used it to solve a real business problem in a billing system. Now that shows you actually understand this stuff. You haven't just memorized definitions.
So here's the bottom line. Anybody can spend a weekend cramming a list of buzzwords, but showing real, measurable impact, that only comes from genuine experience, from banging your head against the problem, making decisions, and actually shipping something that works. That's the stuff that really matters.
Okay, so if a long list of technologies isn't the answer, then what is? What are those senior engineers and hiring managers really searching for when they're looking at a candidate? Let's talk about the skills that actually matter.
It really boils down to these 5 things. Number 1, can you actually break down a complicated problem and figure out what's going wrong? 2, can you explain your ideas clearly to your teammates? 3, do you write clean code that other people can actually understand? 4, do you take real ownership of your work from start to finish? And 5, are you curious? Are you always learning? These are the skills that will make you an amazing teammate.
All right, so you get what skills are important, but now for the million-dollar question: how do you actually show them on your resume and in your interviews? Let's break down how to turn your experience into statements that just scream impact.
Have a look at this number, 40%. By itself, it's totally meaningless, right? But when you connect it to a real result, it suddenly becomes incredibly powerful.
And here's where it all comes together. See? You didn't just work on an API, you made it 40% faster. You didn't just use CI/CD, you chopped the deployment time down from 15 minutes to 5. You didn't just refactor code, you took a giant, scary 2,000-line monster and turned it into something clean and manageable. These are the kinds of measurable results that prove you create real value.
You know, when you boil it all down, it's about a massive shift in how you think. Juniors are almost always focused on tools, asking, what hot new framework should I learn next? But seniors, they're focused on the problem. They start by asking, what problem are we actually trying to solve here, and what's the simplest, most effective way to do it? Making that mental shift is probably the biggest key to leveling up your career.
Okay, so where do you go from here? This is all great in theory, but what do you do tomorrow?
Let's lay out a super clear, actionable plan to help you stop chasing buzzwords and start building real skills that will actually grow your career.
So here's your homework. Step 1. Forget about 10 tiny tutorial projects. Build 2 or 3 solid ones that solve a real problem you actually care about. Step 2. When you write about them, don't just list the technologies. Explain why. Why did you pick that database? What were the trade-offs? Step 3. Practice talking about this stuff out loud. And finally, Step 4. Get some experience working with other people's code. Jump into an open source project. It's one of the best ways to learn.
So look, if you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. Impact comes from clarity, not from clutter. A resume that's just a messy pile of buzzwords is just noise. A clear, simple story about the problems you've solved. Now that is what gets you noticed.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. A company isn't hiring a piece of paper. They are hiring a person, a problem solver. They're looking for someone who they believe can join their team and make a real positive difference.
And that really brings us to the final question, one you should ask yourself. As you build your career, what are you building? Is it just a long list of tools you've kind of touched? Or is it a legacy of the real, meaningful impact you've made on projects and teams? The choice is all yours.